Breaking news! The Playoff computer app can now automatically import data from several professional leagues, letting fans and data geeks do their own analysis of those leagues and their favorite teams' chances. This is hopefully a not-too-long tutorial on how to go about doing that. First, because the data does cost money, importing Pro League data in the iOS version requires the premium subscription, which for an entire year is the price of one beer. In the Android version, importing Pro Leagues is included with basic access, but to do proper analysis, as will be shown here, does require the premium level. For this tutorial, most things shown are premium features. At the present moment, here are the leagues available for import. More should be coming soon, and requests are accepted. Next, some disclaimers, traps, and issues that need to be addressed when doing analysis for many of the pro leagues. The app was conceived for use with fantasy sports, mainly fantasy football, where there are usually around 12 teams in a league, playing about 14 rounds of games, and where tie games are not common. Playoff crunch time typically begins with around 24 to 30 games left in the schedule, and the app can do its analysis of such a league often with zero manual oversight needed to produce accurate results. In comparison, and I'm going to reference the English Premier League, for the numbers, most pro leagues have a lot more teams, play a lot more games, often have tie games being a common event, and even have multiple races going on simultaneously. So for the Premier League, we have 20 teams, 38 rounds, so that equals 380 games. About 25% of the games end in a tie, and there is the title race, safety race, and so on. The two major items that make such a league more troublesome are the number of games, and tie games being common. In its calculations, the app tries to go through every single remaining possibility for how the rest of the season could turn out in order to see which teams have definitively clinched a spot or been eliminated, and for the famous paths-to-clinch feature, which is a listing of what needs to happen in upcoming games for teams to clinch a spot. Now, in a typical fantasy football league, 12 teams, say, there are 4 rounds left, tie games not being a common occurrence, the number of remaining possibilities for how the rest of the season could go is a little bit over 16 million. This, believe it or not, is not much of a problem for the app, but comparing, say, the Premier League, things generally are heating up for the various races around round 30, so 9 rounds of games left, or 90 remaining games, and tie games are common, meaning there are, let's just say a lot of different ways the rest of the season can go. To go through every single one of those scenarios would probably take a few million years. Now, the app has some tricks up its sleeves to make things more workable, but in the end, there is usually going to be a need for some manual oversight to make the analysis as rock-solid as possible. The amount, depending on how detailed one wants to get in accuracy. So I am going to go through one method of analyzing such a league with the app. There's probably different approaches that could be made, and I'll be using the Android version here. The iOS version processes will be similar, and I'll use the aforementioned Premier League as the example. First, from the home screen, click Import. Choose Professional from the list of sources. Then, select the desired Pro League. For league year, since the current season of the Premier League began in 2024, we'll select that. Some leagues, like the NFL, will have commonly used abbreviations for each team, which can make the analysis, particularly the paths-to-clinch in the app, more readable. The Premier League also has such abbreviations available in the data, so I am going to click on that as well. Then hit Import League. Depending on point in the season, this may take a minute or two. Here, we have the standings info for each team. Since we haven't done any analysis yet, Each team's status is showing as undetermined, with no other calculated data shown. We'll click on the remaining games section to view upcoming games. And this is where some of the fun can begin, especially if you are wanting to concentrate on a particular team. Say we wanted to see what the picture would look like if Arsenal won their next couple games. We can click on their games and pre-select them as winning. So, now, the calculations would assume that Arsenal wins their next 3 games, so one could make out as many different scenarios as desired. For this example, I'm going to undo all that so that we have a fair picture of things at the current moment. Next, we'll click on the tiebreaker info section. In this case, we see that goals difference is listed as the tiebreaker that will be used, which is correct. If we needed to change that, we can do so in the Set Tiebreaker section, full instructions on the website. Now, in this example, we chose to use abbreviations, which are all provided. If we wanted to edit team names for whatever reason, we can do that with the Edit Team Info section. Now, we move on to the calculation options. Some of these settings will be pre-selected depending on the league chosen. First, the Premier League standings are sorted by league points, not wins and losses, so that option is already selected. As such a league, we need to tell the app how many league points are awarded for a win. In this case, 3 is already selected. Because tie games are indeed very common, we'll tell the app that yes, we need it to calculate things with tie games as a real possibility, and that a tie is worth 1 point. Now, for the playoff spots, this will depend on what is being analyzed. In the Premier League, if we just want to analyze the title race, playoff spots would be 1. If we wanted to analyze UEFA, which to my knowledge for this year is still just the top 4 in the Premier League, we would put 4. For safety, we would put 17. For this example, let's just look at the title race. The app will attempt to automatically figure out how many games are happening in the upcoming round, and if a league is playing a standard round-robin schedule and the analysis is occurring before the next round has begun, the manual paths number can be left alone. If the league has bye weeks or an uneven schedule, or we're doing analysis in the middle of a round, we'll need to tell the app how many of the next remaining games do we want to have the paths-to-clinch analysis for, and say, there were 5 games left in the current round. We could put 5 here. I'm just going to leave it alone for now. If we were just wanting to see odds and a quick picture, we would leave Deep Analysis option off, but because our goal today is to be as accurate as possible, we'll select Yes. We're going to come back to the Focus on Team option in a couple minutes. And for now, we are done with the options. We'll hit the Analyze button. As there are plenty of games remaining, this is going to take a couple minutes. And the league type, number of games left, tiebreakers, and the particulars of the scenario being presented at the time all determine how long the calculations will take, which is something that cannot be known ahead of time. Okay, we have our results. First thing to look at, the playoff status. Here we can see Liverpool is almost a lock for the title, with 97% mathematical odds. Going down to the bottom, we see several teams are eliminated from title contention, with a couple having a possibly eliminated designation. This is where the things I was talking about earlier. One of the problems with these large leagues with plenty of games left and tie games being common all makes the numbers of possibilities for the rest of the season a large, difficult number. So what this means for our purposes here, if we see eliminated, the app was able to determine that that team is in fact eliminated. Similarly, if we saw clinched, that would be accurate as well. For the teams that have a percentage shown, even if 0, the app found at least one possibility in which they were able to get the title, but also at least one possibility in which they didn't. So, the absence of anything saying clinched or eliminated is accurate in that sense. For any team that shows a possibly eliminated, the app is saying it didn't see any possibilities in which these teams got the title, but it cannot be 100% sure that there isn't some snowball chance in hell that they could get it. Opposite all that, for possibly clinched. This is the first example of where some manual oversight may need to come into play. So, if we were wanting to provide an accurate report, we would note these teams, and we may need to do some manual calculations to verify that they are, in fact, eliminated. Moving on, the next column gives us a number for what is the minimum number of wins, or league points in this case, that a team could get a spot, the title in this example. Here, it is saying Liverpool could theoretically win the title with the 70 points they have now, even if they were to not get any more points the rest of the season. Similarly, it is saying the teams chasing them could theoretically win the title by getting to 70 points as well, as they could still end up tying Liverpool and win the tiebreaker, theoretically at least. At this point, similar to the playoff status, let's look at a footnote to the table. Due to many remaining games, some randomization methods were employed. So, as with the playoff status, if this note is present, for the minimum in number, this number might not be completely gospel. Just eyeballing it here, though, it does look good. Next is a targets column. This is a subjective projected range of what each team would need to have between a reasonable chance at the title and be realistically safe. Here, with Liverpool way ahead of the competition, they are the only team with a complete range shown. The app is saying that if they hit 75 points, they would have a fair chance at the title, with 77 points being considered a realistically safe mark. Here, at the moment, it's saying Arsenal would need to get 85 points to have a fair chance, and that they can't even get to a point where the app would say they would be realistically safe, with the rest of the teams not even being able to hit what would be a fair chance. This target info is going to fluctuate wildly at the beginning of the season, and then at the last week or two of the season, since things are just going to be what they end up being, it won't be too relevant. But it is great for midway through the season to get numbers to aim for. Next, we have a guaranteed in column. This is what the app is saying, that if a team hits this number, no matter what else happens, they will be in. In this case, only Liverpool has a number. The rest of the teams, even if they were to win every single remaining game, could end up missing out. Next is must win out. If a team has a yes here, the app is saying they have to win every remaining game to have a chance. This is going to be subject to the same disclaimer as mentioned before if we have the randomization methods footnote shown. Lastly, control's own destiny. Here, if a team has a yes, this is just a visual representation of the guaranteed in column, and both are subject to the same disclaimer. So, let's go back to the thing I skipped earlier, the focus on team calculation option. And for this example, let's pretend Liverpool had a possibly clinched designation. which, as I mentioned, was the app saying it didn't see any scenarios in which that team didn't get in, but it couldn't guarantee it. So, in our process, if we have any teams showing as possibly clinched, we will go down to the focus on team option and select that team and then rerun the calculations. By telling the app to focus on a particular team, it will devote all its resources to just looking at that one team's chances of clinching a spot. So if Liverpool had a possibly clinched designation the first time around, and then in the calculations, with it in focus, it no longer had such a designation, we would know that while they are almost certainly in, it isn't a mathematical certainty yet. If they still had that designation after this focused calculations, it is about as certain as it could be, while there still might be someone in 1,000 light-years chance. In either case, we can use this to reduce or eliminate the amount of manual looking at it that we would have to do to present a complete picture. There is one other circumstance in which we would use the focus option. If a team is showing have a path to clinch in the upcoming round, and we have the randomization method's footnote, we would want to rerun calculations with them in focus to, again, have the app really try to validate those paths it came up with the first time. And again, depending on how many remaining games there are, will equate to how reliable the results are. So, we'll look at the PDF report now. Click Create a PDF. And then, unfortunately, with Android, it can be a bit of a guessing game where it ended up at. It should be in internal storage/documents/playoff computer. We'll have a printable report with the paths to clinch, if any exist. So hopefully that provided a good summary of how to use the Playoff Computer app to analyze your favorite pro league. And of course, the same concepts can be used for fantasy leagues or just about any head-to-head league you are into.